Quilt Monkey is brought to you by Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects.
Hi and welcome to Quilt Monkey. In today's show I'm going to show you this fantastic little product which makes sewing half square triangles even easier. I love half square triangles. They are probably my favourite block or building block of blocks. I could do them probably all day, every day, but sometimes it can get a little bit tedious, all of that trimming down, squaring up and cutting all of the squares, marking all of the lines. So this product, it gets rid of all of that. It's called Triangles on a Roll, and that's exactly what it is. It's pre-printed triangles on a roll of paper. You can buy them at your local quilt shop, or you can find them online if you just do a little Google. Search for triangles on a roll. You can get any size between like 1 inch up to 6 inch. This is the biggest size that they do. And they also do flying geese and quarter square triangles. So it's all kinds of different triangles on a roll. I got this set from the Fat Quarter shop online, and they have the whole collection on their website. So as you can see, here's a roll of paper and it's foundation piecing. So you're sewing directly onto the paper and the fabric as well. So there's no need to cut squares. So I'm going to go and grab some fabrics and show you just how to use this fantastic product. So the instructions are printed directly onto the paper here, but there are a couple of things that I found that aren't included in the instructions that from my personal experience just are helpful little hints. So what you need to do is cut your triangles on a roll to the length that you want. Now an optimum length is about the same as the longer side of a fat quarter, so no more than like 21, 22 inches. The reason I know this is because I did try originally when I first used these to cut as many as possible and use like a much longer length of fabric. Though that would have been a great idea, but it just got a little bit cumbersome trying to pass all of this great long length in and out of my sewing machine like that. So I found that slightly shorter length works really, really well. And obviously we've all got fat quarters, so it's a nice length to work with. And you end up with 6 half square triangles from that length. So you cut your triangle on a roll and then 2 strips of fabric. On the paper itself, it is printed at what width you want to cut your fabric strips, because obviously it varies depending on what size half square triangle you're working on. But for this one, which is the 6 inch finished, you need to cut your strips 7 1/4 inches wide. So I've cut 2 strips 7 1/4 inches wide and the width of the fat quarter. I place those right sides together and then pop the paper on top. And then if you just pin in each triangle, and that will hold your paper in place. And then as you can see, there are some arrows, there are some dotted lines, and then there are some solid lines on every one. And the arrows show you which direction you need to stitch in. The dotted lines show you where to stitch, and the solid lines are going to be cut lines for when you're finished. So if you pop your pins into the spaces and then take this to your sewing machine, shorten your stitch length. So if your stitches are normally at like about 2.5 on your machine, either on your dial or on the computer screen, just shorten those down to about 1 1/4, because this is foundation piecing and you want that stitch length to be a little bit shorter so that you can tear the papers away but not tear your stitches out. So shorten those stitches and then literally stitch through all of the layers following the arrows. And you don't have to cut your thread at the end here. You can just kind of pull out a little bit, turn it around, back in your machine, and then carry on. You can keep the needle in the needle down position at this point and then just pivot and go along again the other way, just following those arrows. And once you've done this one set, it's also a good idea to just sit there and do a few sets at once. You know, you can whip through quite a lot of half square triangles in no time at all. And you're not, getting up and sitting back down again, up and sitting back down again, cutting more fabric, stacking it up. If you've got a nice stack all ready to go, then every time you get a few minutes, you can just whip up a few and then move on. So once you've stitched those, like I have here, so you can see there's the stitches on the back. Just take your pins out if you haven't done that already. And then we can trim down your blocks. So you want to cut through the paper and the fabric, and you just line your ruler up on the solid lines. And cut. But I use a second rotary cutter for if I'm doing any kind of foundation piecing or cutting through paper, so that I'm not blunting my regular rotary cutter blade. So I've got one for papers and then one for my normal fabrics. And if you just like stick a little mark on it or a dot or something, and then you know which one is which. And that goes the same with scissors as well. Obviously you wouldn't use your best fabric scissors to cut paper. You'd use some paper scissors. Just cut on those solid lines. And obviously at the end as well. Like so. It's actually really quite satisfying because you're trimming your blocks up, but there's none of that having to spin it round on your mat and not risk the ruler sliding away as you're trying to trim round your half square triangle. You also waste a lot less fabric this way, because whenever I do my half square triangles in the regular way, I cut a full inch bigger just to give myself a little bit of extra room to play with. And this way you do end up wasting a lot less fabric, which is brilliant. Once you've cut on every solid line, you end up with your half square triangles. And then you can open them out and you can press them with the papers still in. And once they're pressed, you can get a big stack of them, have them next to you, and then just go and watch some TV or something, or employ some of your small children or your friends' small children to rip the papers out. So you just fold them back on itself and rip. Because your stitch length is shorter, it comes away really, really easily. And they just pull out like that. And you've got a perfect half square triangle block, and each one is the same size. Each one is lovely and square. It's all perfect. And it's quick. And these are not expensive. It costs less than a yard of fabric to buy these, and you've got enough for a whole quilt. So they are a fantastic product. They're inexpensive, they're really satisfying to use, and if you're not a big fan of foundation piecing, which I'm not really that confident with foundation piecing, this is a lovely introduction to it, and actually really quite addictive. I can see why people enjoy foundation piecing. I mean, just for the ripping off of the paper at the end, it's just really, really nice. So I'm going to carry on with this now. I'm going to rip my papers out. I'm going to have a cup of tea. I'm going to whip up a quilt. And I'll see you next time on Quilt Monkey.